You have 7.5 hours until you're stuck here forever. I need to stop all this horror before it happens.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2023 horror comedy Totally Killer. The film is directed by Nahatcha Khan and it stars Keeman Shipka, Olivia Holt, Charlie Gillespie, Lachlan Monroe, we have Julie Bowen and Randall Park. Now this film focuses on a character called Jamie Hughes. She is a teenager. She has overprotective parents, but for good reason. 35 years previously, her mum's three best friends were killed by a masked killer in 1987. So mum is very protective of her daughter. However, the daughter's a bit of a rebel. She's kind of like, Mum, leave it, okay? If it happened 35 years ago, forget it. However, the killer returns, kills her mum, and by a weird twist of fate, the daughter, Jamie, is sent back through the use of a time machine to 1987, where she then has to try and figure out who the killer is before the killer strikes and kills the three people back in the 80s, while at the same time trying to figure out how to get back home. Right, what are my thoughts on Totally Killer? Well, we have a little bit of a hidden gem here. Well, not so much of a hidden gem. I think enough people are talking about this film. I always love it when you find a film that kind of comes out of nowhere and massively entertains, and this film absolutely does that. I had an absolute blast with this. It beautifully balanced the horror and the comedy. I thought that worked really, really well. It's always a difficult balance to get right, and I thought this just nailed it. The tone of the film I thought was perfect. I thought the performances were all excellent. I thought Keeman Shipka, who played Jamie, whose character Jamie was, I think, or I suspect, as a bit of a homage to Jamie Lee Curtis. I thought she was a great character. I loved the idea of this character, you know, a modern day teen thrust into the 80s, and even though she's not overbearing, I mean, a lot of the youth today is overbearing. They're really woke, and you know, gender politics and all that twaddle. She's not overbearing, Jamie, in fact, by any stretch of the imagination, but she's been thrust into the situation in the 80s, and she's really shocked by the the sexism and the bullying and the misogyny and the lack of personal space and you name it. And that's where much of the comedy comes from. You know, her comments that she makes to people like, that's not all right to say that, and things like that. It just works, really. To say nothing of the fact of, you know, she's meeting her mother and father in the 80s, which is quite fun, you know, to see the comedy in that. The styles and some of the comments and some of the situations that she gets into in back in the 80s. And, you know, the fact that she's trying to solve this case. I mean, what she's hoping to do is catch this killer back in the 80s so that her mum, 35 years later, isn't killed by this killer, if you know what I mean. But things are kind of slightly different now. So she's got to think on her feet and get people to help her. She's also got to figure out how to get back. So she's got to figure out how she can get to help her, you know, get this time travel thing going to get her back to the future sort of thing. The film tips its hat to time travel movies like Back to the Future and Endgame and all that kind of stuff. It's really self-aware of what it is. It borrows heavily from Halloween 2018 because the character, her mum in the future, has spent 35 years preparing for the return of this killer, so she's done self-defense classes. She's insisted that her daughter did self-defense classes in order to prepare for his return, sort of thing. So, it tips its hat to everything that it is kind of ripping off. I've read as well, there's a little bit of controversy that there's a film that came out in 2015, I think it was, called The Final Girls. It's a film I'm aware of, I've never seen. I will probably watch it now. And a few people are sort of saying this film has ripped that film off. Very, very similar plot lines, but, you know, it is what it is. I certainly found this certainly very, very entertaining and definitely a lot of fun to watch. I thought the design of the killer and the killer's mask, I mean, it's always a cliche, isn't it? Having a slasher film with a masked killer. And this film knows what it is and knows what it's doing, but I thought it had a quite unique look. It was a cross between Max Headroom and Billy Idol, the way this mask looked. I thought it was nicely designed. The biggest issue here is if you just don't focus too heavily on the time travel stuff. You know, how, number one, this time travel is invented by a high school student. Just don't. If you think about that too much, it'll probably frustrate you because, you know. But it's like some other like comedic time travel movies like Hot Tub Time Machine and things like that. You know, you're not really there to analyse how they go back in time, I suppose. So just don't do that here. If you like, click your brain off and don't focus on the science of it too much because you're just going to get, I think, frustrated with it really because it makes no attempt really to explain it or make any sense when it comes to the science part of it and the time travel part of it. The rest of the film, it's just a plot device really to get her back to the 80s and to put her into that situation in the 80s. And I think the film does a really fabulous job of entertaining, getting you on board, giving us some fun characters, some fun situations, and some pretty good kills as well, you know, a pretty good story sort of thing. And I had a really good time with this. It's not a film I really even had on my radar. It's a film I had on my watch list. I thought, oh, well, I'll check that out. It sounds interesting. But it isn't a film that I thought, you know, I'm really going to make it my mission to watch this film now. And then I started seeing some reviews of people that I really trusted, like Leo at Geek Legion of Doom and others, scoring this, you know, quite highly. And I'm thinking, well, you know, I'm going to check this one out. And I'm probably going to save this one as well closer to Halloween and rewatch it with my wife because it's on Prime as well. So, yeah, I had a good time with this film. I thought it had memorable moments, some fairly memorable characters, some fun bits and pieces, and yeah, it was good. I mean, I think the reveal of the killer sort of thing was a bit of a anticlimax, and you could argue even a little bit predictable. You know, there was a moment in the film where I kind of had this thought of who it may or may not be, and turned out to be, well, right in one aspect, I suppose. So it's not necessarily full of loads of surprises. It's just a fun slasher film that I think gets the comedy and the horror balanced just about right. There are definitely moments in this that'll make you smile, and the moments in this that'll probably, you know, if you're easily scared from jump scares and things, it'll help you, you know, hiding behind the cushion as well. So I thought this was a lot of fun. So check it out if you get the opportunity. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed checking out this review. I will, of course, be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.